All right, so it's been a minute. I thought I would just share some thoughts, have a little heart to heart with you guys. On my side, trying to shuffle some things around and just better connect with individuals right where I think it matters most, which happens to be right in the middle of that, natural, spiritual, and the practical realm. But I want to throw out a question, an idea. I don't have all the answers, but I think it's a discussion that should be had amongst those that are awake and aware and realizing what's really happening in the bigger picture of things. But the word idolatry, when's the last time you've heard that word being used in reference to preparedness, stacking, all the practical matters to brace and prepare for what we think will be a life-changing event in the days ahead, months ahead, weeks ahead, who knows. But I wanted to just share this word idolatry just because it was brought to my attention during my studies. And I'd imagine there might be other people out there, believers or not, doesn't matter. We're all in the same boat. Destinations might be somewhat different, but yet we're going to try to work on that on this channel here. But ultimately, idolatry. And I know there's one thing on my side I love to talk about, getting your weight up, stacking, preparedness. And of course, I follow a lot of, smart individuals out there that really makes a difference in people's lives by having them prepare in certain ways, teaching them the details of how to do this, how to do that. And it all serves its purpose because it's the practical thing that we can do if we're anticipating some type of event that is unforeseen or foreseen or whatever. But then again, from a spiritual standpoint, it's, for me personally, I think what hit me the hardest is the self-sufficiency side of things that could possibly stray one from trusting in the Lord the way that, from the Christian faith, we're told to do such, because ultimately we can prepare as much as we want, but we don't know anything beyond our next thought. And so I know there's many examples on how God encourages people to be prepared and things of that nature. But then again, there's also more, I think, relatable things that we can use to talk about preparedness and how there is a possibility. I do believe that there could be a way that a person can become too prepared to the point where they think they have enough or have figured it out, and they themselves are able to do whatever's needed to protect themselves, preserve themselves, whatever, and moving forward. And a lot of this has to do with a piece of scripture I'm going to share in a minute. But in preparedness, self-sufficiency happens to be the biggest thing we're all going for, wanting to be out of the system as much as possible. And then a lot of that has to do with proactively being offensive and preparing, but also we're playing defensive because we're anticipating something. So we're bracing for impact, hoping that we'll be shielded from it in some capacity. And with all that I just said, how much of that incorporates God in individual plans is ultimately what I'm trying to get to. Just because I think that there's a point to where you can feel you have enough weight, but you can never have enough weight in the bigger scheme of things, but you get my drift. You can have enough food, enough water, enough shelter, all those things to where you yourself believe that you have done it or are trying to do it, minus God. And then, of course, I'm going to just share with you real quick the definition of idolatry from the Merriam-Webster dictionary. It says, idolatry is the worship of a physical object as God. So some people may say, hey, man, I don't worship gold. I don't worship silver. I don't worship, food prep. I'm saying God got me, whatever. But then again, you can become, and this is just my opinion, this is why I want your feedback on this, because I can be far off or I can hit the head on the nail, to where this is just some discussions I think we should all have, because once again, this is not a common message or theme that people talk about because it's touchy. But for Marian, it talks about a physical object. And of course, the golden calf and all the things from the Old Testaments that were great examples of how people, probably with good intentions, deviated from the spiritual as well as the practical things that God did for them, and automatically fell into the trap of worshiping physical items because it became something they were used to. They can see, they can touch, they can feel. It removed them from the faith side, which ultimately is a defining a measurement, rather, for how we gauge the spiritual and the natural, and that's the practical side, including your faith. And so another definition I want to share with you real quick in reference to idolatry, it comes from more of a Christian website. And so this is from thegospelcoalition.org. It says, idolatry is loving anything more than Jesus Christ. Idolatry is treating anything as more important than Jesus for your meaning in life, for your happiness, for your security and hope. And I think the main takeaway from that statement there is security and hope. how much of the things that we do on a day-to-day basis is to shore up our own security, and we put our hope in those things that they'll be enough to get us through whatever might be ahead of us, without really considering the fact that, is there a possibility? How do we know? How do you know? How do I know? That's where I'm trying to figure this out. What's that defining line? Is there one to where idolatry can creep in, to where we place our own mindset, intellect, as well as intelligence on the things that we can do for ourselves, and turn it into some form of idolatry, to where we are now slipped into some form of sin in the form of placing our own preparedness, whether it be metals, food, water, shelter, to the point where we look at it as we're good. I'm cool. I'm doing the best I can. And then we are looking at those items or that substance as a form of worship in idolatry type of standpoint. So I'm curious, based upon a little bit of information I shared, is there a slippery slope? Is there such thing as going too far to where you can slip into that trap of being a person who idolizes, their own preparedness, financially, monetarily speaking, whatever? That's something worth figuring out. And then just to piggyback even more, I want to use a reference. And so when this idea of idolatry came to me, it was in reference to a piece of scripture that it has nothing to do with it exactly, but it's something that we can learn from it, because it paints a bigger picture as to a person who, due to their success in the real world, was able to secure a good amount of his life necessities, and based upon what he had accumulated, he within himself said that I am good, let me be merry, let me be joyful, I'll tear down my barns, build bigger barns, and then I'll enjoy myself. So take that and flip it upside down. This is just an example I want to use, so don't take it too seriously. But from a biblical standpoint, the context that I'm going to use for that is that a person was able to store up enough goods, and then they were called a fool from that. This is all the words in red, so this is coming from the Messiah himself. And then he was talking about the need to be rich towards God. So that would be my thing. How would the person be rich towards God? So the piece of scripture I'm referring to happens to be labeled as the parable of the rich fool. And I'll pick up real quick. I'm reading it right here from Luke 12. Chapter 18 says, "Then he said, this is what I'll do. I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones, and there I will store my surplus." Is there possible to have more than enough, i.e. surplus of grain? "And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry." But God said to him, "You fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you, and then who will get what you have prepared for yourself?" Prepared for yourself. Preparation, preparedness for yourself. This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves but is not rich toward God. So just some buzzwords from that scripture there. Having plenty, what you have prepared, whoever stores up things for themselves and is not rich towards God, is all that activity, can it be considered done in vain? That's just the type of conversation I wanted to have in this discussion here, because based on that scripture there, that is completely different from preparing for a unforeseeable event that we are anticipating to happen, but it falls within the same context of a person within themselves using their own human intellect, telling themselves that they can get and store up a certain amount of things that they can then use for future references, i.e. in the form of a savings or retirement. All that stuff falls into that same category in a sense. But then again, God said, "You fool, whose will those things belong to now that you're going to depart the earth?" And then he ends up by saying being rich toward God. And so on the flip side of this, it is possible, in my opinion, to take on the preparedness mindset to the point where you start to feel that sense of comfort, to where you are not as rich towards God as perhaps you might want to be or you should be in reference to the things that matters most to God. And of course, we're instructed as believers, according to the kingdom message, that we're supposed to believe the God for our daily bread, which means that in order to have your daily bread met, you have to daily check in with him. You have to daily consult him, daily get before him. And then he promises that he'll add all those things to us. So that's that like, okay, I hear what the Lord is saying. From the practical standpoint, I want to do what I can, because of course that's wise. But then again, I don't want to get caught in the natural to where I'm solely dependent upon these worldly things here, in the sense that it gives me a sense of security and hope i.e. in reference to thought of idolatry. So this is just some things I wanted to bring to your attention, because being rich towards God, to me, goes right into the whole practical side of things. It requires practice. It requires a daily commitment towards getting in the Word and finding out where you stand, because everybody who's watching this, if you're still tuned in, you're at a different point than probably the next man next to you, or next woman next to you. Everybody's walking a different walk, but heading in the same direction. And so I just wanted to throw out the word idolatry. What does it mean to you? It hit me hard, got me thinking about some things, and that's a part of my desire to shift a little bit and talk more about these real topics here, because I don't want people to be misled and thinking that I'm saying get your weight up as if that's the end be all, because it's not. It's just a practical thing amongst many other things that we can do. But ultimately, I want to make sure that people are focused on the bigger picture, which is being rich toward God, which I believe, for me personally, that has to do with service. That has to do with depositing treasures in heaven, which happens to come through serving people and a few other things. So, and on top of that, I believe God will definitely take care of his own like he always have. But anyway, I don't want to rant anymore. Just wanted to lay those thoughts out. What do you think? Where did I miss it? This is a time for you guys to get involved and share your 2 cents down in the comment, and then pass this on to family and friends just to get them to thinking about something different, because I doubt you'll hear the word idolatry referenced in any form of the macroeconomic preparedness, subject matter. So I thought I would just shake things up a little bit, put it out there. What do you think? Where did I miss it? Let me know. Comment below. If you guys want to hear more just thoughts, things that touch my heart and pass it on to you, I'd love to do that. Let me know in the comment section. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe if you're new. See you guys later.